I just had my wedding ruined. My soon-to-be wife, she canceled the wedding in front of my entire family while I was standing on the altar, and there's nobody to blame except her mom, my mother-in-law. See, get this. The entire time we were planning the wedding, my mother-in-law, she wanted to control the seating chart. I thought it was so weird and strange, but you know what? I'm not going to sit here and fight that. So I said, okay, you want to control it so bad, seat the people how you want. What I didn't know was that she was planning something so devious, so evil, that it ended up breaking up the soon-to-be marriage. She brought Holden, which is my soon-to-be wife's ex, the same one that mother-in-law is in love with, and she says that I'm the reason that it was ruined, because she would have married Holden if it wasn't for me, which, by the way, I'm not good enough for her. That's what mother-in-law says. And just when I thought I could fix this, even though the wedding was a disaster, even though my family walked out, even though Holden ended up in an ambulance, it didn't seem to matter, because the words that my wife said 7 days after the disaster, it changed my life. Well, I met Kara in college. It was 4 years ago today. We were friends first, the kind of friendship where you just click instantly, where conversations flow naturally, that hours pass without you noticing. After months of that easy connection, we started to date. It felt right. It felt like home. She was everything I thought I wanted in a partner, smart, funny, beautiful, with this quiet strength that drew me in. But from the very beginning, she always said her family was intense. That's the word that she used, intense, not close-knit, not traditional, not even difficult, just intense. And like an idiot, I never pushed her to explain what that actually meant. The first time I met her mom, Elise, I felt it immediately. The cold, judgmental look that lasted just a fraction of a second before her face rearranged itself into something that resembled warmth. Throughout the entire dinner, Elise complimented me constantly. My education, my career prospects, my manners. But there was something underneath every word that felt sharp and cutting, like she was measuring me against some invisible standard and finding me perpetually lacking. I mentioned it to Kara afterward, and she just squeezed my hand and told me that her mother took time to warm up to people. I believed her because I wanted to. So, Kara mentioned dating someone named Holden once, super briefly, in the way that you mention an ex when you're trying to be honest, but also dismiss them as irrelevant. She said it was not serious. I didn't think much of it. We all have a past, but I started noticing that whenever I said the same, Holden, even just casually, like if we were watching a TV or a character that had the same name, Elise would get this look on her face. Uncomfortable, almost panicked. Kara would immediately change the subject, just assuring me that the past was the past and we should focus on the future, together. Oh, I did. Gosh, I really did. After 3 years together, I proposed. It was perfect, sunset on the beach where we had our first real date. A ring I saved for months to afford, and when I got down on one knee, Kara starts crying immediately. Not happy tears at first, she was almost shaking, crying so hard she could barely breathe. When she finally said yes, there was this look in her eyes that I couldn't quite read, nervous, scared. I told myself it was just overwhelming emotion. You know, people do cry at proposals, it's normal. The moment we announced our engagement, Elise took over, completely. She pretended to be thrilled, hugging me with that same fake warmth that she always shown. But within days, she had commandeered every aspect of our wedding planning. She became obsessed with tradition, with proper lineage, with making cryptic comments about suitable matches and family legacy. See, my sister Danny pulled me aside one day and told me straight up that Elise gave off territorial vibes, like she was guarding Kara from something from me, maybe. I laughed it off. Kara seemed constantly torn between wanting a beautiful wedding and preventing her mother from having some kind of emotional breakdown. Elise's husband, Reed, Kara's father, was the quietest man I'd ever met. He barely spoke at family dinners, and when he did, he would glance at Elise first, like he was checking for permission or approval. Kara's cousin, Marin, tried to be friendly with me, but she had this habit of shutting down completely whenever Elise entered a room, like she was afraid of triggering something. I started noticing small things, but they didn't really add up. See, Kara would get jumpy whenever Elise checked her phone in front of us. Every single time I tried to discuss the seating chart, and Kara would pivot the conversation so smoothly I almost did not notice what she was doing. Elise insisted on handling all the guest list herself, calling it her gift to us. She became weirdly fixated on the reception layouts, particularly about keeping certain tables open. When I asked which tables and why, she would wave her hand dismissively and say that she was still finalizing the deets. Danny told me point blank that Kara looked like she was hiding something big. I told my sister she was just being paranoid, that it was just pre-wedding stress and everybody goes a little crazy before a wedding, right? That's what I kept telling myself. As the wedding got closer, Elise's behavior escalated. She repeatedly criticized my family for being too casual. Not refined enough, not sophisticated, she would make these cutting comments about how we just did things, always followed by a little laugh like it was a joke, but the contempt in her eyes was unmistakable. I overheard her telling Reed one night that Kara was making a mistake, that I wasn't him. I didn't know who him was. I didn't want to know. Kara became increasingly defensive about her past relationships. If I asked casual questions, nothing invasive, just normal getting to know your partner stuff, she would shut down completely or change the subject. Elise started requesting old photographs of me, which I thought was weird but wrote off as wanting to make some kind of wedding slideshow. Looking back, I think she was comparing me to someone, to Holden. Elise demanded complete control over invitations, RSVPs, confirmations. When I asked for a copy of the master guest list, she told me that she was still adjusting it, and would share it when it was finalized. She insisted of having a private table near the front of the ceremony, but refused to say who it was for. Danny caught her, whispering to Marin about how the real moment would be worth the wait. What moment? Worth what wait? During dress fittings and cake testings, Kara looked like she was on the verge of tears constantly. She would go pale whenever Elise made decisions without consulting her. I noticed she would delete old photos from her Facebook timeline. Photos, from the years that we've been together? When I asked about it, she said that she was just cleaning up her profile. Elise pushed for a pre-rehearsal brunch that only included Kara's side of the family. My family was not invited. See, at the brunch, which I only heard about secondhand from Marin, Elise apparently gave an entire toast about the importance of destiny and fate bringing the right people together. Kara looked physically ill during the speech but said nothing. Didn't object, didn't correct her mother, just sat there looking like she might throw up. I was starting to feel like there was an entire parallel reality happening around me that I wasn't privy to. Elise demanded that my family stay completely out of the seating arrangement, and when my mother tried to help, Elise literally told her to back off. Danny overheard Elise telling a florist to make sure there was room for him at the specific table, and when I asked who he was, Elise lied smoothly and said it was for the official's nephew. I believed her because what else was I supposed to do? I mean, it made sense. Kara was shutting down emotionally more every day. She would stop engaging in wedding conversations, and she would stare off into space during planning meetings. I chalked it up as wedding chaos, stress, to normal premarital jitters. I convinced myself that everything would be fine once we got through the ceremony. The nights before the wedding, Kara disappeared for 3 hours. No text, no call, nothing. And when she finally came back, her eyes were red and she wouldn't tell me where she was. Danny saw Elise pacing outside the venue that same night, whispering frantically into her phone, visibly panicked. I overheard part of what Elise was saying. Something about he confirmed he's coming and everything is ready. When I asked Kara about it, she burst into tears, uncontrollable sobbing. She kept saying that she was just overwhelmed, that weddings are stressful, that she loved me and everything would be okay. My best friend, Travis, pulled me aside and told me to trust my gut. He said something was very wrong and I needed to figure out what before I walked down that aisle. But I was so deep in this by then, so invested in the idea of our future that I could not see what was right in front of me. Elise refused to let me see the final seating chart until the wedding day. She said it was bad luck or something, some superstition that she invested in. Marin started avoiding eye contact with me entirely, and Reed got so drunk at the rehearsal dinner that he could barely stand, more alcohol than anyone in his family had ever seen him consume. Danny overheard Kara begging Elise not to ruin this for her, and Elise snapped back that Kara was the one who ruined Destiny and that Kara needs to fix it. When I walked into the room right after that exchange, Kara was completely pale. See, the rehearsal dinner felt like a funeral. Elise made a speech about roads not taken and choices we make that echo through time. Kara physically shrank in her seat, and that night, back in our hotel room, she slept facing the wall. And I could see her shoulders shaking. I said, "What's wrong?" She whispered that she could not lose her family again. Again? I didn't understand, but I didn't push. I thought she was just stressed. Elise demanded to arrive early on the wedding day to prepare the family section. Danny warned me one more time that Elise was planning something big and awful, and Travis just encountered me to check the seating charts first thing in the morning to demand to see before the ceremony. But I didn't. I convinced myself it was just nerves, just cold feet, just normal wedding day anxiety. The morning of my wedding, a vendor, who was clearly stressed out and overwhelmed, accidentally handed me a binder. Inside was the real seating chart. Not the simplified version Elise had shown us during planning sessions, but the actual detailed layout with names and table assignments. I saw a name I didn't recognize in the family section. Holden. The name appeared multiple times throughout the chart, marked with family priority in Elise's handwriting. Holden had a front row seat closer to the altar than my own mother. I felt my stomach drop. I found the coordinator and asked about it, with my voice probably shaking, and she looked uncomfortable as hell, and said Elise had insisted on its placement. She also mentioned that Elise had provided a special meal preference for Holden, had coordinated his arrival time, had basically given him the treatment you would give immediate family. I flipped through the binder with hands that would not stop trembling. In the margins of the seating charts, Elise had written notes. One of them said Kara plus Holden reunion moment. I ran through the venue looking for Kara. I couldn't find her. Instead, I found Marin crying alone in a hallway outside the bridal suite. When she saw me, she looked terrified. I asked what the hell's going on. She broke. She told me everything. Elise has been scheming for months, actually, for the entire time Kara and I were together, to be honest. Elise had been hosting Holden at a private family dinner behind my back. She still referred to him as the rightful son-in-law, and Kara had not just dated Holden briefly like she told me, she dated him for months secretly, even after she and I started seeing each other. There was overlap. There was lies upon lies, and Elise had been pressuring Kara to leave me right up until the night before the wedding, and that's where Kara had been during her 3-hour disappearance. Kara had refused to call off the wedding, but Elise had invited Holden anywho. Elise had rewritten the seating chart specifically to force a moment between Holden and Kara. Yeah, so they would be physically close during the ceremony, where Kara would have to see him, where I would be humiliated in front of everyone, and Marin showed me screenshots of her phone. Group chats where Elise has been planning this for weeks. Messages about how satisfying it would be to watch me realize what was happening. How Kara belonged with Holden, how I was temporary, how this wedding would correct the mistake Kara had made. I felt like the floor was falling beneath me. My entire wedding, the thing that I've been planning and dreaming about and investing in emotionally and financially, was a setup, a scheme, a con, a stage for my public humiliation. I couldn't breathe. I left Marin in that hallway and stumbled outside, needing air, needing space, needing anything to make sense of what I just learned. But before I could even process it, before I could decide what to do, guests started to arrive, and then he showed up. Holden walked into the venue wearing a suit that perfectly matched our wedding color. Not close, it was perfect. Like he has been given the palette in advance. Like he had been included in the planning. Elise met him at the entrance and hugged him for so long that several guests turned to stare. I watched him across the venue frozen as she whispered something to him that I could not hear but could read on her lips. Today should have been yours. Guests were whispering now. People have sensed something was off, and Holden walked confidently to his front row seat, the seat that should have gone to my grandmother, the seat that Elise had marked as family priority, and sat down like he belonged there. I stormed up to the bridal suite. Kara was there in her wedding dress, surrounded by bridesmaids who immediately scattered when they saw my face. I demanded the truth, all of it, everything. Kara broke down. She was shaking so badly that she had to sit down. She admitted that she had dated Holden for much longer than she ever told me, that they've been together while she and I were starting to get close, that her mother had never accepted the breakup, that Elise had been keeping Holden in the picture the entire time. Family dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday celebrations, Kara had been living a double life, keeping me separate from this entire reality her mother had constructed. I asked her the only question that mattered: do you still love him? The silence that followed destroyed me. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no, she just cried. I walked out of the room and I could hear her calling after me, but I couldn't turn around. And downstairs, the ceremony was supposed to start in 20 minutes. Guests were seated, the string quartets were playing, and everything looked perfect. That's when Elise showed up. She must have seen me leaving the bridal suit. She approached me in front of the seated guest and started screeching about how I wouldn't let her daughter marry beneath her. Her voice carried and echoed across the entire ceremony space, and people's heads were turning. The music stopped. Then she said it loud enough for everybody to hear: "My daughter deserves Holden, not you." Danny appeared out of nowhere, screaming at Elise to shut her mouth, and Travis was right behind her. Other guests were standing up now, confused, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Holden stood up from his front row seat like he was ready to step in, like he was preparing to reclaim what he thought was his. Travis punched him in the jaw before I could even move. Just walked right up and bow, right in the kisser. Holden went down hard, the seating erupted in absolute chaos, and my family was yelling at Kara's family. Kara's family was yelling at each other, and people were screaming. Somebody knocked over one of the massive floral pillars, and it crashed onto the gift table, shattering glass and scattering envelopes everywhere. Ray tried to call Elise down. She hit him with her purse, literally struck her own husband, while shouting that he betrayed destiny but not standing up to Kara by not forcing her to marry Holden. Kara appeared at the top of the stairs in her wedding dress. She saw everything, the fighting, the chaos, Holden on the ground holding his bleeding face, and her mother screaming. She collapsed, right there in the landing, sobbing uncontrollably even. I walked out. I didn't run, I literally walked, put one foot in front of the other until I was outside, until I was in my car, until I was driving away. Behind me, I could hear Elise shrieking, "You ruined my daughter's future, you ruined everything." I looked in my rearview mirror as I turned onto the main road. An ambulance was pulling into the venue parking lot, and I found out later that Elise fainted, collapsed while screaming at everybody, and somebody called an ambulance. The entire wedding ended with an emergency responder loading my would-be mother-in-law into an ambulance while guests stood there in shock. The worst part isn't even the wedding. It's knowing that Kara let it happen. She knew her mother invited Holden. She knew about the seating chart. She knew about all of it and still expected me to show up and marry her while her ex-boyfriend watched from the front row like some kind of twisted audience member at the show of my humiliation. I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to move forward, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone again. Update number 2. It's been exactly 3 weeks. Hey guys, I'm back for an update, so let me get right into it. Kara has been staying with Marin. She cannot go home to her parents because Elise is having a complete breakdown and Reed is apparently just as useless as he's always been. Kara's been texting me constantly long paragraphs about how sorry she is, how she never wanted any of this, and how she was trying to protect me from her mother's obsession. Trying to protect me by lying to me for 3 years, by letting her mother plan my public humiliation, and by allowing her ex-boyfriend to be treated like family while I was kept in the dark? I haven't responded to her. I don't even know what I would say. Travis told me that Holden left the venue with a broken jaw. Literally broken. X-rays proved it. Travis hit him hard enough to fracture the bone, and the police got called for that too, but Holden said he's not pressing charges. Probably because he knew how bad it would look for the full story coming out. Travis feels terrible about it, not about hitting Holden, but the fact that I had to deal with any of this at all. He keeps apologizing for not pushing harder before the wedding, for not forcing me to see what was obvious. I finally looked at the ring I was supposed to put on Kara's finger. It's still in my jacket pocket. I spent 6 months saving for that ring, and I worked overtime, picked up extra shifts, and budgeted down to the penny. For what? To be part of some sick fantasy Elise had been controlling her daughter's life? My parents are devastated, my mother cries every time she calls, and my dad is furious. The kind of quiet, dangerous fury that makes me worried about what he might do if he runs into Elise somewhere. They spent thousands of dollars on this wedding, so did Kara's parents, ironically. All that money, all that planning, all those dreams about celebrating our future, and it ended with an ambulance and police reports and a destroyed venue? I kept thinking about Kara crying when I proposed. You know, that moment, I thought was overwhelming joy. It wasn't joy at all, it was fear. Yeah, she knew, even then, what her mother would do. She knew that she was trapping me in something I couldn't escape, and you know what? She did it anyways. I'm so tired. I'm tired of thinking about it, tired of replaying it, tired of feeling this crushing weight in my chest. Everything I feel is just tired. I look at myself in the mirror and I don't recognize who I see. I look hollow. I look like someone essentially has been scooped out of me. People keep telling me I dodged a bullet, that it's better I found out before the marriage was official, that I'm lucky, but I don't feel lucky. I feel destroyed. Kara, she sent me a final message yesterday. She said she's calling off the engagement officially, that she's not going to fight for us anymore because she knows the damage is too deep. She said she loves me, and she's sorry, and she wishes things would have been different, and she said her mother is in intensive therapy and probably won't speak to her for months. She said Holden went back to whatever state he crawled from, and, well, blocked all of them on everything. She said she understands if I hate her. But you know the worst part? I don't hate her. Final update. Guys, I really need to post this. I mean, I really do. Let me just get into it. Well, you should be expecting to hear from Wesley. You know, the one who originally wrote both posts above you. But Wesley won't make this post, so I will. He doesn't know I'm doing this, and he's probably mad if he ever found out, but people have been asking for updates and messaging the account, so here's what you need to know. Wesley is not okay. I don't know if he's going to be. He finally moved out of that hotel 2 days ago, not because he was ready, because the extended stay rate was bleeding him dry and he couldn't afford it. Last week I convinced him to go to his home, the one that he actually bought for them. He made it as far as the driveway before a full-on panic attack took him out. Couldn't breathe, thought he was having a heart attack. I drove him to the ER. They said it was severe anxiety and gave him medication that he refuses to take. He lost his job. He's taken bereavement leave, which technically you're not supposed to use for a failed wedding, but his boss was very understanding. The bills from the wedding are destroying him. The venue is suing for damages, like I mentioned before. Not Wesley per se specifically, but since his name was on the lot of the contracts, he's liable. But here's the part Wesley doesn't know. The part I need to tell someone because it's eating me alive. I saw Kara last week. Ran into her at a coffee shop and she looked terrible. Like she aged 5 years in a month. She asked about Wesley and I told her to stay away from him. She starts crying right there in public. Then she told me something I wish I didn't know. She's pregnant. She found out 2 days after the wedding imploded and she's about 7 weeks along. She hasn't told Wesley and she's not going to. She said that she's been through enough, that he would feel obligated to be involved even though everything is broken, so well, she won't do that to him. She's planning to move across the country to live with an aunt. I asked if she was sure it's Wesley's and she looked at me like I slapped her. She said, yeah, she's sure. That despite everything else she lied about, she would never be unfaithful during their relationship. That Holden showing up was her mother's delusion, not hers. She's not asking for child support. She's not asking for anything. She just wanted me to know in case something happens to her, in case the baby ever needs medical history, in case there's ever a reason this information might become necessary. Then she made me promise not to tell Wesley unless it was an emergency. I'm breaking that promise by posting this, but I don't even know what else to do. Elise is in psychiatric hold, and she's not in therapy like they said. She had a complete psychiatric break. After the wedding, she tried to hurt herself. Reed finally grew a spine and had her committed involuntarily. She's been there for 2 weeks, and they're saying that she might need to stay for months. Kara's family is completely fractured. See, Marin isn't speaking to anyone, and Reed is apparently living alone in the big house, shell-shocked and lost, and the rest of the extended family has taken sides or just abandoned the whole situation entirely. Well, me, being his sister, I don't know what to do. Wesley is in my guest room right now, unemployed, broke, medicated for anxiety and depression with no idea that he's going to be a father in 7 months. I don't know what to do with that information, so I'm posting this because people deserve to know how these stories really end. Not with healing and closure and lessons learned. Sometimes they just end with wreckage and secrets and people whose lives will never be the same. So let me ask you this. Do I break the promise I made and tell Wesley that he's about to be a father? I'm honestly scared to death of how he will react. So this is what is left. A destroyed man, a runaway pregnant woman, a family in ruins, and me sitting here knowing something I can't unknow. Trying to decide if keeping a promise to protect my brother means participating in the kind of lie that destroyed him in the first place. So no, I don't have the answers. Guys, I'm just going to read one comment here because it was pretty easy to find people supporting OP, but I did find one comment against OP, and a lot of people were not agreeing with this. This is what it says. Well, I think you're massively overreacting and you're ignoring your own role in this disaster. You walked out on a woman you were supposedly loved without even giving her a chance to explain herself fully or walk through this like adults. Yeah, Elise is clearly mentally unstable, and yeah, the Holden thing was shady, but Kara was a victim of her mother's manipulation, just as much as you were. She was trapped between an abusive, controlling parent and the man she chose to marry. And instead of fighting for her, you abandoned her at the worst possible moment of her life. You didn't even stick around long enough to have a real conversation about what she actually wanted versus what her psychotic mother orchestrated behind everyone's back. The fact that you're sitting in a hotel room feeling sorry for yourself and you had to have your sister post on Instagram for you, well, while Kara is pregnant and alone, forced to flee across the country because her entire support system collapsed, is honestly pathetic. Just like you. You claim you love her, but you bolted the second things get hard. Marriage is supposed to be about fighting through adversity. She told you she wasn't into Holden, it was her mom. And you failed that test before you even made it to the altar. Also, let's be real. You ignored red flags after red flags for 3 years because it was convenient, because you didn't want to rock the boat, because confronting hard truths was uncomfortable for you. Oh, do you need a blanket? That's on you, not just on Kara or her family at all. Guys, let's talk about this one. I would love to know your thoughts. You know, maybe some parts of that comment can make sense, but I don't think all of it does at all. I support OP in this, but I do see the points basically saying Kara is pregnant and she is alone and she's dealing with her mom, which is, she's having a psychotic break. Let me know what you guys think about it. Drop it in the comment section down below. Do you think OP fought hard enough for the love of his life? Let's talk about it, guys. Have a great day. And just remember one thing. It's cool to be kind. Peace.